This has been a bit of an interesting week. I got dumped. And, it was not the best way. It was totally blindsided and no phone call, no conversation, no discussion, just, a few text messages and, not much of an explanation, and then I was deleted and blocked. So, that was quite a blow. But I am fortunately of the mindset that you should never let a setback go to waste. Every time you experience a setback, it's a learning opportunity. And I don't know, just to talk about that one. So, if when you're learning anything new, just say you're learning how to ride a bike and you get on the bike and you fall off, every time you fall off that bike, it's not a waste of time. You're actually learning how to ride, and learning is basically making a mistake over and over again until you stop making mistakes. And that's a perfectly natural thing, but there are some very nasty people in the world who kind of go, you fell off your bike, see, you're stupid, see, you're useless, you don't know how to do it, you'll never be able to ride a bike. And what they're doing is they're trying to associate learning or make learning seem like an impossible obstacle, and this is where they can kind of hamstring someone so they can't rise and reach their full potential. It's very sneaky, it's very mean, it's conditioning, it's brainwashing, you could say, in a way, on a very simple level. But you just kind of get people to think every time they make a mistake, it's some kind of personal judgment on them, when it's just, just a learning process going on there. So, never let a setback go to waste. And so I thought, well, how can I, bounce back from this? Where's the positive thing? And I've been doing lots of exercise, but I've also been doing lots of thinking. And I've been doing lots of thinking because one of the good things about being dumped is that you feel quite sad. And I felt pretty sad the last few days. And sadness, believe it or not, I think it's quite a valuable emotion because it really helps you to think that when I feel sad, that is when I have my deepest thoughts. I don't think very deeply when I'm happy, so it's actually kind of valuable to be sad sometimes, because then I can really sit down and meditate and think about something in depth. And I thought I would share with you some of the things that I was thinking about related to this, about being dumped and the breakup, and I thought, it may actually be helpful to a few other people to hear my insights about this experience. So first off the bat, if you're going to break up with someone, don't do it over text. And don't do it without a conversation. I was talking to someone about this, and I said, I know there are therapists out there, and she mentioned that she had a conversation with her therapist, and that's how she decided to break up with me. And so I'm not that I'm paranoid or anything, but I do know of certain therapists out there who have some really strange ideas about personal etiquette in relationships. Let's put it that way. So you might hear these women say, you don't need to tell him, you don't need to talk to him, you don't need to discuss it with him. It's your relationship. You can do what you want. And I mentioned that to someone, and they said, yes, I've heard that. I've heard someone say that just exactly as you did. And the funny thing is, so when people hear that kind of statement, you don't need to talk to him, you don't need to have a discussion, they often feel like this burden has been lifted off their shoulders, because they think, I don't need to have this conversation because I was really not looking forward to that conversation. I had knots in my stomach. I didn't want to have that conversation. And someone has just said, I don't have to have that conversation. I don't need to have that conversation, so it should be fine. And I feel so much better. It must be a good thing. But for anyone who has just a basic bit of information about, morality and logic, would point out that saying you don't need to is no argument at all. It is like saying, oh, you don't need to pay for something, you can just steal it. Or you don't need to get consent, you can just rape them. And when you hear that, you obviously know that that's not moral. That's totally immoral. And that's the thing. There's no morality in any kind of needs situation. And that's the trick they've got there. They say, well, you don't need to talk to him, but really you do. And now some people say, oh yeah, but what if he's like an abusive or a violent guy? Do you need to? Well, you don't need to in that circumstance. And I'll explain why there's a difference between the criminal male and the decent male. Is that when you enter into a relationship with someone, you don't like sign a charter, you don't make a contract in writing. What you do is a series of very subtle negotiations, and they would usually work like this, like, look, I'm going to express some vulnerability to you, like, or I really like you, or I'm attached to you. And the other person, they either respond by going, oh no, I'm not interested in you, or they respond favorably and they say, yeah, I like you too. I'm not going to hurt you. I accept your vulnerability, and I'm going to be gentle with you, and I'll show you a bit of my vulnerability. And when you kind of do this, this is how you negotiate. You kind of like go, well, can I get closer to you? Yes, you can get closer. Can I get even closer? Yes, you can get even closer. And you gradually build up this bond. And part of this bond is like, well, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to look out for you. And that's what we would want to see in a good, healthy relationship, that two people are helping and looking out for each other. Now, in the case of like the violent, abusive boyfriend, girlfriend, they've already broken that agreement because you're vulnerable in that person and they've hurt you. So there's no reciprocity in that relationship. So you don't need to talk to him. You don't need to explain it to him. You don't need to have a conversation with him because he's broken the fundamental contract in any kind of relationship, the trust level. And so you don't owe him anything in that situation. But if he has never wronged you, if he has never betrayed you, and if he has never abused you, never hurt you, but has actually been honest and thoughtful and kind, then that's a totally different situation. In that situation, you do need to have a conversation with them because you have got this agreement. You have kind of said, look, I want to look after you. As you want to look after me, I want to keep you safe. You want to keep me safe. We have this agreement. It may not be in writing, but this is how we negotiate our relationships. Well, at least in our culture. I wonder if some cultures do have it in writing. They might, But yeah, by not doing that, that is a breach of the trust. It's a total breach of the relationship. And of course, I'm instantly very hurt because I'm like, wow, it's like my feelings don't matter, which, if you know me, I might explain this a little bit more. So in my family, the boys our feelings don't really matter at all. I was thinking of a really good example the other day. So it's one time I'm at my mother's place and I'm having a discussion with my brother-in-law, and the discussion got quite heated. Now, I was very calm and I was very logical and rational, and I was responding to each point with arguments and logic and data. But my brother-in-law got quite upset, and he ended up like raising his voice and calling me an idiot and stupid. And he did that in front of two sisters and two nieces and my mother and my older brother. Now, it's really hurtful when someone starts calling you those things, especially a family member. But the thing that was interesting is that my sister didn't object, like she's married to him, but she didn't object to her brother just being called stupid and an idiot in front of the family. My other sister didn't object. My mother just watched her son-in-law call her son an idiot and stupid in front of the rest of the family, Again, my mother just kind of stayed quiet, didn't say anything. And that's the norm in my family, because men don't have feelings. Like, we're not there to be protected or concerned about or show any respect to. And so, of course, I got no understanding, no apology. No one has ever acknowledged that was wrong, and no one certainly talked to my brother-in-law, say, hey, you don't talk to other family members like that. That's not appropriate. And so, yeah, that's the status I come from. I come from a background where men's feelings just don't matter. We're silenced. We're not heard. We're not listened to. And so when this happens, when a girl is like, well, I'm not going to even talk to you. I'm not even going to discuss it with you. You might even call it triggering. It kind of goes back to, oh yeah, my childhood traumas. Yeah, ouch. Yeah, that hurts a lot. Yep, great. And of course, that puts a challenge for me, because I'm like, okay, I need to keep my faith in humanity and not be jaded. I mean, I'm not going to be jaded, but a lot of people, and it's certainly in the past, there's been that temptation for me, where it's like, well, someone's hurt and it reminds you of a previous hurt. Now, I do understand, from a more sophisticated point of view, that because of my family background, I'm kind of biased to finding women who will replicate that family background. And I'm quite disappointed in myself, because I thought this girl, she wouldn't do that. Because I saw that she had empathy and sensitivity and a very strong sense of justice and right and wrong. And I looked at that and I thought, yeah, this is a girl, I really like her. I really like her, because you don't have to see a lot of girls that concerned about justice and right and wrong like she is. And so I kind of thought, I think I'm pretty safe with her. I feel safe opening up to her. But I was wrong. And I don't think she's a bad person at all. I think she's a bit confused, because I think if she thought about it, she would be aghast at herself of what she just did. But I don't think she has thought about it yet. I'm sure one day she will, because she's a very smart girl, so she'll think about it. But until that time, I don't expect to hear any apologies from her. I don't know if she will. It'd be really nice. It's always good to apologize about these things. Now, it's a really nasty thing just to end it like that, to not talk about it. And I had a thought about something else. Because, she did mention that she had a conversation with a therapist about me. And that was the decision. Now, I'm not a mainstream therapist. I have a few opinions and views that are not in line with the mainstream. And so I do get... some therapists they're mainstream ones and we get on really well, friends. But a lot of them, they don't like me. They don't like my point of view. They don't like the way I do things. They have an issue with me. And so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, could this therapist have had something in for me? Like, did they look at my videos and decide, oh, I don't like him? And this bothers me, because I'm like, one of the big issues with the therapist and the therapist-client relationship is you don't want transference. You don't want to bias your client with your own feelings and issues, because they're transferring them to the client, so to speak. And I think to myself, ooh, could this have been something that went on? I don't know, something to think about. And definitely, I think, a concern. I do worry a lot about the professionality of a lot of therapists out there, particularly ones that might have been indoctrinated by feminism and Marxist ideas. Like, she actually did use the word triggered, and I hate the word triggered. Now, it's not that the word triggered doesn't have any use in itself, but it's just the word triggered, it can be used as a weasel word. And what I mean is it can be used to say something other than what you actually mean. You can use it, be dishonest with, deceptive. So when I think of the word triggered, I usually think, wow, you have experienced something that's just like a blow to the chest, and you're like, oh oh my God, I can't think straight. I'm having recurring remembering trauma. It's a really powerful thing. And when you see someone who's actually triggered, you're kind of like, oh, wow, that is quite a big impact it's had on them. But that isn't how a lot of people use the word. A lot of the time when people use the word triggered, they simply mean, oh my God, I had a feeling. I felt sad, or I felt interested, or I felt excited, I felt worried, I felt afraid, or I felt angry. And it's just a feeling. It's just an everyday feeling. But this goes in with the pathologizing of emotions, is that they're pathologizing having a feeling. And going back to the point of never let a setback go to waste, is that, well, when I get sad, I kind of go, well, oh, sadness is activating my thinking power. It's allowing me to think more critically and to pay more attention to something. Something that I can't do when I'm happy. Like when I'm happy, I just don't have that mental energy to think about something deeply. And so in a way, like being sad is a gift, or being afraid can be a gift, because that's another way of thinking that can be helpful in certain situations, not intellectually usually, but otherwise anger can be very helpful in certain lines of thinking along morality. Now, I wouldn't want to do all my thinking while I'm angry when it comes to morality, but certainly some very bright ideas will come up when you've got that single focus of like, I need to justify something. And so there's value in all feelings. And so I think the biggest problem people have is not their emotions, but their attitude towards their emotions. And when I hear that triggered word, I just think, yeah, that's those feminists saying any feeling's bad. It's a bad feeling, you're pathological, you're not meant to be feeling that. I kind of go, is that a good therapist? Because you know where I would sit on that one. And yeah, it's a funny thing, my motto is Per Aspera ad Astra. And it's literally through hardship to the stars. It's like it's working through our challenges, through our setbacks, that we become great, that we reach for the stars to our highest level of achievement. We will never achieve our greatest if we run away from struggle. We need to embrace the struggle. And that's, I'm not going to have a conversation with you. I'm not going to discuss it with you, because that would be a struggle. And when I've had a conversation about someone with this before, it's like, what, I need to talk with my partner about any kind of change to the relationship that I want to make, even if it's ending the relationship. And I'm like, yeah, totally. Because imagine, and I have to explain this to women a lot of the time, like, imagine your husband just comes home from work and he says, look, I've quit my job because I want to have a career as a busker, as a street busker. I'm going to learn guitar. I'm going to start next week and I'm going to become a busker. Now, you would be like, hey, you cannot just quit your job. You cannot just make that decision unilaterally without discussing with me, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever. We're in a relationship. We depend on each other. We're interdependent. If you're going to quit your job, we need to discuss that. We need to discuss what you're going to do and what we're going to do financially and how we're going to get by. And it's not a case of like, no, you can't do that. It's just that you can't do that without a discussion. And likewise, it's like, well, you can't make changes to a relationship without having a discussion or explaining yourself, explaining your reasons. And yeah, sure, like, the funny thing is, like, if she had explained to me her reasons and her thinking, well, I probably could have understood. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see why you're not ready for a relationship. That's cool. And if she'd done that, I still would have felt sad, but I wouldn't have felt really wounded. That's the thing. It's like there's a much more better way of doing things. And as I said, like being sad, okay, well, that's part of life. I just accept that. It's no big deal. And, I can make good use out of my sadness. I'm pretty creative when I'm sad. But by doing it this way, it's like, well, yeah, you'll get the sadness, but you'll get this stab to the heart as well. And it's not cool. It's not cool. But yeah, the issue here with relationships is that there's no such thing as my relationship or your relationship. It is our relationship. A relationship is always about two people. And that's why you can't make a big decision like changing career or imagine going, look, I've just decided I'm going to keep dating even though we're married. It's like, you need to have a conversation about that. You can't just do those things. Pretty big conversation in that case. And that's it. Most people get this. Most people understand that a relationship is an our thing. It's you own it together. It's a shared thing. and therefore you can't have one person just making decisions for the other person. When anything that impacts the relationship is something you need to talk about. And the people who get that, well, they have, really happy marriages and long-term relationships that last for their lifetime because they understand how that works. And the people who don't understand that tend to have these very rocky, unstable relationships, and they don't quite understand why. And I always go to myself, like, if she's talking to a therapist about relationships, why didn't she explain to her that she can't just do this without a conversation? And I do know therapists that when I have this conversation with them, I kind of like, a relationship's an our thing. It's not a my thing. And they go, yeah, but if they talk about it, he's going to tell her something and change her mind. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. The relationship might work. They might actually reach compromise, negotiate with each other, and get a win-win. And the relationship won't end. It'll just keep going and going and going because they've got good communication and support for each other. Oh my God, that would be awful, wouldn't it? No, seriously though. This is the problem I have with feminists, because feminists kind of have this view like any woman who's in a relationship with a man is somehow damaging herself because you shouldn't want a man, you don't need no man. And it's like, well, you're trying to destroy one of the most beautiful relationships. Like, romantic relationships are one of the most beautiful things in the world. And as usual, it's some kind of feminist, communist, Marxist just trying to destroy beauty. They love to kill beauty. And it's like, well, yeah, it'd be an awful shame if people ended up happily ever after. That's just awful. You understand how people who don't understand the relationship is an our instead of a my thing. They won't have very stable long-term relationships. They won't work out very well because they'll have these rocky things where it's like, well, I'm telling you this, so I've decided this after the fact, and that's not cool. Not cool. I got to cut that out. Now, I am fortunate that we hadn't been in a relationship for very long. It was actually still very early, so I'm not actually too badly hurt. But all the same, that's not a good thing. Don't do it. Don't do it. Let me learn from this. I'm telling you about my own experience so you can learn this and avoid these mistakes yourself in the future. Now, besides that lovely boundary violation there of talking about or making a change to the relationship without discussing it with me, totally betraying the trust I had in her. The other thing that I found really questionable, and I keep wondering, I can't let her off the hook because she went along with this, but as a therapist, so she didn't explain exactly why, but she said part of that, well, she's going through a big ordeal that's coming up for her. It's going to be a very difficult ordeal where she's dealing with a case of injustice against her. And she's concerned that she doesn't have enough time and energy to... she didn't actually say that. I'm putting words into her mouth. But she didn't have enough mental energy, emotional energy to pursue both this case, this ordeal that she's going through, and to maintain a relationship. And it bothers me because you've got this either-or thinking. It's like, well, you can only have one or the other. And the other thing is like the view that a relationship is somehow a burden, that I'm going to be a burden, I'm going to drag her down, I'm not going to be a support to her. And so what she's basically saying is, Jason, you are a drain. You drain me of my energy. You are just no good. Which is funny because she said, I'm such an amazing person and I've taught her so much and she could never repay me all the work I've given her. So she said all those nice things, but when she says that, well, look, I only have enough to do one of these, the ordeal or the relationship, I can't do both. What she's saying is that I'm a drain. I'm an absolute drain on her. And I'm like, wow, ouch, slap in the face. But assuming that was true, and I had a client come to me with this and say, look, this is relationship, it might work out, it's a romantic one, but I've got this really big ordeal where I need to get a restitution for some bad that was done to me. And I'd be looking at my client, okay, so you're a woman in your mid-30s, and yes, you have been wronged and you're trying to right that wrong, but you are running out of time. Your eggs are disappearing fast, and that window for having children and settling down and getting married is getting very, very small. It would not be a good idea, and I'd just suggest this to them. I'd just point out to my client, if they came to me like this, I'd say, I don't think revenge is a good idea. I don't think justice is a good idea in this case, righting this wrong. Because the problem with revenge / justice, I mean, it's really hard to tell them apart. I mean, you say revenge when you want it to sound bad, and you say justice when you want to say it good, when you want it to sound good. But they're basically the same thing. You can't really pull them apart. And it's not like I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with revenge, in revenge itself, but I just think it's not a good idea, because revenge is very expensive. It will cost you time, it will cost you energy, it will cost you your sanity, cost you money, it will cost you respect from other people, and the big thing is it will cost you a huge opportunity. It will cost you, while you're so focusing on getting that revenge, however you're doing it, you are losing the opportunity to improve yourself in other ways. And so I say to people like, well, yeah, okay, I can feel it. You've been hurt, and I can feel you really want revenge, and you'd feel a lot better if you went out and got that revenge. Well, you think you'll feel a lot better when you got that revenge. But keep in mind that you are going to lose a lot of other things in the process. There's a lot of opportunity cost in revenge. And so you may actually, even if you succeed at revenge, you may actually regret that you did it. You'll afterwards you go like, oh my god, I wish I'd spent all that time and energy on someone else, someone worth my time, or something, some project worth my time, instead of doing something destructive in the end. And I get it, like, oh yeah, but there's injustice. And yeah, I certainly, if you're dealing with someone who's a killer or a rapist or an arsonist, hunt them down and take them out, because they will do a lot more damage if you don't. But if you're just talking about someone who hasn't been that extreme, then it's not really worth it. As much as it sucks, it's not worth to get revenge. And I think it's really important to kind of go, I really do believe this. The best revenge is to prosper yourself, to focus on yourself, to make yourself stronger, to advance yourself and your interests further, invest more into you. And I think that is the best way to get revenge. And so if I'd be telling my client, I'd be saying like, look, if it's an either-or situation between facing this ordeal and a romantic relationship, look, you're in your mid-30s, go for the romantic relationship. That's where you should be putting all your energy in. You will regret it for 40 years at least if you don't sort this out now. You are running out of time. This is more important. The other thing, like, it can wait, even if it can't wait and you can't deal with it later on, it's not something that's going to impact you for the rest of your life. Like that. Thank you for interrupting. So yeah, even if you can only do one thing or the other, go for the relationship, the thing that'll actually help you or advance your life, because if you miss out on that opportunity, there's no going back. Whereas with the other one, like, even if you can't do it later, though you probably can do it later, but even if you can't do that thing later, at least you don't miss out this opportunity cost that you're going to regret for 40 years. I mean, that's what I'd be telling a client. And so I'm very suspicious, like, what the hell did her therapist tell her about this, because it doesn't sound very good. And like, I've heard one way of putting it, it's like, if you go for revenge over having a natural relationship, like go for revenge on your ex, so to speak, and that's not the situation at all, but if you go to revenge on an ex, and that kind of tells everyone to stay away from you, that you're an awful, awful person, and so then you might miss out on having children. And so in your process of getting revenge, what you've actually done is you kind of killed off your own children. You drowned them or by preventing them from being born, because that's what the cost of revenge was. And so I generally tell my clients, like, anytime you're thinking of revenge, just remember, you're probably going to be cutting your nose off to spite your face. I mean, it's tough to hear, but it's like, you will benefit a lot more from letting go of that revenge. But yeah, the other thing is that she really emphasized that I was an amazing person, and that because I'm so understanding, so amazing, so thoughtful, so kind, so compassionate, that I'm going to understand why she's just blindsiding me. And oh my gosh, if you want to annoy me, that is the number one way to annoy me. Because this is the idea of like, oh, see, he's a saint. I can treat him like rubbish because he won't hate me for it because he's a saint. Isn't it wonderful? I'm going to treat the nicest person ever like trash. Just treat him like trash because he won't do anything. He won't take revenge on me. And that's what people probably just hearing my previous talk about, no, don't take revenge, they're probably thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, so if I hurt Jason, he won't take revenge on me. And I'm like, no. Just because someone is amazing doesn't mean you can treat them like rubbish. That thought process itself is sociopathic. It is sociopathic, and it is totally destructive. It is completely destructive to all the causes that most people have in life. Because if you start treating good men badly, the men that you supposedly think are amazing and great, and you treat them like rubbish, then you are pushing them down, you are harming them, you are damaging them, you are putting spite and anger and frustration and hurt into them, and you are damaging them. And what you are doing is giving all this opportunity to men who aren't so decent, the criminal-minded men. And if you keep pushing down the good saintly men, or elevating the bad men because, oh, I've got to respect him because he'll punch me. If you're elevating that kind of guy over the guy who will never hurt you, never take revenge, then you are creating the disaster of civilization collapse right now. You are doing it yourself. If you truly believe someone is amazing, you support them, you respect them, you treat them nicely, you talk to them courteously, and you show them respect. And that's the way to build a better future. And this, oh my god, this is so wicked and cruel and disgusting. And it's so presumptuous and entitled. It's like, oh, because he's such a nice person, then I'm entitled to not suffering the consequences of mistreating him. Like, oh my god, I cannot think of anything more disgusting. And the other thing that's occurred to me is like, maybe she was just calling me amazing just to flatter me, because it certainly felt like that. It's like, I'm going to call you amazing so that you feel so flattered that you're not going to be mad or upset with me for doing something that I know deep down is obviously wrong. And mind you, it has occurred to me that maybe the reason why she blocked me off everything was so that I couldn't see that she actually was dating someone else. And I'm like, wow, yes, okay. Which, mind you, that's great, because, I mean, it dodged a bullet. It sounds like dodged a bullet. But yeah, that is something that's just so annoying. Like, don't, if you really think a guy is amazing, do not treat him badly. You will suffer. Your children will suffer. Your daughters, your granddaughters will suffer, because you are bringing about a world where there will be no good men left, because their hearts have all been broken, and they've all been shattered and stomped on and taken advantage of. The women who go, oh, he's a really violent, nasty criminal man, so I'm going to treat him really well because he might hurt me. You are scum. I'll just say, you are scum. You are elevating really awful men, and it's going to destroy civilization in the long run. Just stay away from those kind of men. They're dangerous. They don't keep their promises. They lie. We'll all be better off if you stay away from them and treat the guys who will treat you with respect, with the respect that they treat you with. Now, I don't think my ex is a bad person. I think she's pretty smart and sensitive, and I actually think she'll probably figure a lot of this out herself if she hasn't already. And maybe she's a bit too embarrassed to apologize, I don't know. But I do think she's confused, and I mean, I can't blame her for being confused, because she, like myself, came from a broken home, and she grew up in a broken education system like me, and we live in a very broken, fractured culture at the moment, and we've got a lot of therapists who are quite simply indoctrinated by Marxists and feminists to enact social programming, like the idea all men are bad, you can't trust men, all men are out to get you, heterosexual sex is rape, yeah, all that kind of thing. So, and in my conversations with her, she really was quite fascinated with philosophy and morals and culture and beauty, and so this is all kind of new to her, and I can see, okay, well, she's learning a lot of stuff that she'd never been taught, and so she probably doesn't know, she doesn't understand what she's done wrong, but as I said, because I think she is genuinely a good person, she will be very shocked when she does find out the consequences of her actions, and she'll figure it out. I think she's smart enough to figure it out. But it's just kind of ironic where part of her ordeal is that she needs to stand up for herself to say, look, you've hurt me and you've done wrong to me. And it's like, well, but I'm not allowed to stand up for myself and say, you hurt me, you did wrong to me. Almost. And so, well, no, I am. I'm making a video. This is me turning my setback into an advantage. I'm actually making something productive out of it. But it's also good for me to say, look, yeah, it wasn't right to treat me like that, to treat me with such disrespect. It's not okay. But that all said, I do think, I will be praying for her. I will be praying for her that she gets through this confusion. And that's what I'm calling confusion. And that she finds her path and she does take care of herself and looks after herself and has a successful, happy life. Even though it's probably not going to be with me. Almost certainly not going to be at me at this point in time. I'm very hard time trusting her right now. But yeah, I don't think anyone else should be thinking about hurting her. My friends have been amazing, by the way, through this whole situation. Thank you so much for all your care and support. And yeah, no, and I really do hope and pray that she does see the light and that things work out for her. And of course, that things will work out for me because I won't let anything hold me back. I'm just falling off my bike and getting back on again. And I'm going to be stronger and better next time. So, until that next time, Prospera ad Astra.